right. Let's go ahead and get started. Hopefully we're able to hear. Let's see. Marissa, can you test your mic? I just want to make sure it's feeding through correctly.
Sure. Testing, testing, 1, 2, 3.
Yep, looks like we are good to go there. So, hi everybody. Thank you so much for joining our stream today. If you guys were able to join us last time, we met and went over everybody on the whole team and then walked through the mobile app as it's coming together from a high level. So today's going to be a shorter stream, not quite as involved. It's going to just be Marissa and I hanging out, walking through some of the updates that we've made to give you guys a further look into how the development is coming along. And then at the end, we'll give you guys an update in terms of what we're looking at for our launch timeline, as well as some of the other goals that we've got on the horizon and that we've hit. So if you guys have any questions, please feel free to leave them in the stream chat. We have a section at the end for any Q&A that comes in, so we'll do our best to get to those later on through the stream. So without further ado, I'll go ahead and start walking us through, and hopefully I don't break things this time. I changed it up, so hopefully there's no ghost living in our PDF today, and it's not like flipping around all the way. So this is just a rundown again of what you guys can expect to walk through, and as always we will be saving this and re-uploading it to YouTube with subtitles as well. So for those of you who might be joining us who are new to the project, just wanted to leave this in to give you a heads up of kind of what CRAWLR is. This is our guiding light that we use, so our mission here is to build intuitive and powerful tools that inspire and connect tabletop gamers. The first of which that we're working on is, of course, our mobile app to connect tabletop gamers to different game sessions so that everybody can play more games. And as a very exciting update, as some of you guys know if you were with us from the previous time, we ended up changing the system, overhauling it completely. So we reset our users all the way back to 0. And we are over 1,000 users signed up as early adopters, which is super exciting. Really happy to cross that threshold. So excited to have you guys with us. And you know, that's without really having anything except being able to log in and create, you know, a username. So whenever we do push into the App Store, I'm super excited to see what happens from there. So yay for 1,000 people already signed up. Super exciting goal to go ahead and cross. All right. So just as a quick little terminology lesson here, if you guys hear us talk about game session, we're referring to what you might call like a campaign or an adventure, a one-shot. You know, that's basically a to sit down and actually play the game. We're calling it game session because we are trying to be, you know, system agnostic. So we felt like that was a good term to use for us. Similarly, game listing is referring to a game session as it appears in the search. So for example, you might say, I searched for online games and found lots of listings for 5e game sessions. So before I hand it off to Marissa here to walk through the new updates, if you guys joined us last month, you saw these screenshots. This is the app look and feel that Ben Wooten, our UX UI designer, did a really great job pulling together. Obviously, everything you'll see through here is still subject to change prior to our launch, but just like the colors, wanted to bring this back around. I just feel like it's got a lot of personality. Just kind of shows, you know, who we are. So again, so this is nothing new. If you were with us last time, you have seen this, but I will go ahead and pass the reins over to Marissa to walk you guys through all of our new stuff.
Yeah. All right. So essentially, just going to go through a little bit of what you can expect from new users. For those who have already signed up, you wouldn't do certain things like setting up username and things like that. But essentially, the core components is basic account setup, profile, player profile setup if you're a CRAWLR as a player, and game master profile setup if you're using it mostly as a game master. You can do both. You can do one or the other. But yeah, so this is sort of a view of if you were doing both. Typical account setup, username, nickname, display name, sort of like what you want to be referred to as. Birth date to make sure that everybody's over 18. And then essentially this section for preferences is just to get a little bit of insight into what you're looking for, how you want to play, how you want to run games, things like that. What is best suited for your play style, running style, things like that. But yeah, so essentially just asking questions based off of your location, if you prefer to play in person, and what sort of game system you're wanting to play or run next for the both player and game master. These things can be updated later in your profile settings. Nothing is set in stone in terms of that, but it gives us insight into what people are looking for, and then it also helps further look for games for you later. But yeah, okay, so we can move on to... Oh, yeah, go for it.
Just as a quick note, because you mentioned it, and there might be people who are new into the program here. When Marissa mentioned that we are asking for birth dates to make sure that people are over the age of 18, that's just based on the nature of playing tabletop games. It's, you're meeting with people either online or in person. So it's just something that right now at this time, we are looking at keeping it to adults only, not in terms of content, but just in terms of making sure that whenever we do open up to allow minors on the platform, that we have more tools in place to make it a safer environment there. So just so you guys are aware, currently we are looking at 18 plus. The previous versions of CRAWLR were, but just want to leave that out as a note.
Sure. Good note. All right. So the next section. So essentially once you are set up as a user and you can see sort of all the listings in the app and things like that, or if you're GM and you're curious about making a new session, this is what a run through of what you might have to fill in for that information. So I think for the most part, it's pretty basic details. What are you running? What are you naming it? If you have a fun, fancy name for it, what game setting, what game system, things like that. And then additionally, schedule. We know that it's very hard to schedule games like this. We're trying to make it easier. And basically the schedule availability. We think that it'll be helpful for GMs to put when they are available, and then for players to access that information and then put in when they're available and see how that matches up. And then the third section is location. So location will, inputs and stuff may depend on whether you want to play online or run online or in person. So things like if you run in person, we'll need to know general area so that people can, filter down based off of close to them and stuff like that. But also if you're online, what specific tools you might use. So like Discord, Roll20, or Roll20, D&D Beyond, any of the tabletop tools, essentially, if that's how you're planning to run, or Theater of the Mind and you only use, phone call or Discord to just do voice. Things like that will be accessible depending on which kind of in-person or online remote type of game that you'll play. So yeah, after you sort of fill out the basic information, I think one thing I'll just add to session tags is sort of our way of covering the basis of extra information that doesn't quite fit into all use cases. So there'll be a checklist of different concepts, like this is a role play kind of game, this is combat, and it's, multiple selects. So choose as many to your heart's desire almost. But obviously, it'll depend on your game session. But yeah, so after you finish creating a game session, players will be able to join that game session and be able to apply to join to that game session. So as a player, you'll probably see a list of, or you'll see all the game session listings and you'll be like, ooh, this one's cool, or that. But if you don't find what you want, you're going to want to filter. And so based off of some of the preference questions that you asked in your onboarding sort of account stuff, some of these filters might be pre-filled for you so that it does find you what you want from the get-go. But if you want to, fine-tune, you can go ahead into the filter section and, try and find specifically what you want. Can't guarantee there's always something there. You might have to adjust your filters as needed. But essentially, you'll be able to do some basic filters, and then premium filters for the premium subscription users will be available as well. But we want to give access to at least the bare minimum, like you have to have this information to find a game session, and we want people to be able to filter based off of those things. So essentially, use the filters, apply them, and then you'll see a list of selected game sessions. And then if you wanted to go ahead and click into one, you would be able to see the details that the GM had filled out, and then you would be able to see what players are involved, if any, yet. So if you're the first person to sort of open up the game session, you'll see the game master, and you'll be able to go into their profile and get a little bit more information. You'll also be able to see other players if they're already included in the game session, waiting for more. You'll be able to go into their profiles and just make sure, that if you think it'll be a good fit. But yeah, so then essentially you'll be able to apply. The GMs will go through their list of applicants, and then the game would sort of the adventure would begin, essentially. But yeah, so I think that covers a little bit of preview of what we've been doing so far. But I think it gives you guys a good sense of how this will work and what sort of things will be in, what will it entail. I think, design and stuff subject to change and things like that. We want to make sure everything is as streamlined as possible. But this is essentially the core, meat and potatoes of the app, if you will. Game sessions specifically, being able to join, see, visualize, things like that. And of course, you'll be able to, share and game sessions as you see fit. But yeah. All right. On to the next. Okay, so in terms of what we've done, and I think but more that we didn't show or couldn't show because it's a behind the scenes thing. Essentially, just basic account setup, player profile, game master profile, just the core profile based concepts, basic game session listings, filtering, things like that. And then specific game session interactions, joining, liking, sharing, things like that. Essentially, the core parts of this app are game sessions, profiles, and a specific game session. So everything sort of ties back to those sort of three main components. We also have a basic notification system. When you play a game, you get a notification, the GM gets a notification, things like that. But yeah, so in terms of next steps, what's on the horizon for stuff we have to do? We do have to implement what I'm calling a reputation system, and the way that I am using this is a big umbrella term for I don't want to say an Uber style rating, being able to rate GMs and players for your experiences after playing in sessions with them, but also the ability to block and report and things like that for safety measures, for safety tools. So that's under the big umbrella reputation system. We're still working that out. But yeah, the other big piece that we want to tackle is the concept of messaging. So the game session party chatting. So it's not going to be a one-on-one thing. It's going to be when the session opens up, a chat opens up so that the GMs and players can all chat with each other before. That's where you'll be able to, get a good sense of each other, get any information that you need to start playing outside of this tool, since this is more or less a matching system and not a place to play the games themselves. But yeah, so to implement that, and then you'll be able to sort of get on your way with playing with each other. And again, the thing that we're always doing and always going to be doing forever and ever, essentially, is just improving and expanding the choices for all the different selections that we have, for all the inputs, all the tags, all the game systems. We know that we can't possibly get everything, out the gate, everything all at once out the gate, but we want to make sure that that's an iterative process. And if you guys have suggestions, eventually we'll have places for everybody to submit things that if they're missing from our app, we can definitely figure out to add them to those lists. But yeah. Back to you, Jackie.
Yeah. Thank you, Marissa, for walking through all of that for us. So just to give you guys an update here on the timeline, Marissa and I talked a bunch about it. And as you can see, the core pieces of this app are currently in place. Everything that you saw back there, that's not just mock-ups, that is currently within our system, so that could be something to be able to push live. But there's just some more fine tuning that, we would both like to see with the application. So we are pushing to fall of 2021. ideally wanting to look towards the first part of it. So in the August timeframe is what we're going after. That's just going to give us the summer to be able to go through some steps that Marissa was just chatting about on the previous slide, because we also have to get through implementing those as well as our alpha testing, the beta testing, and then getting approved to go within the store itself. So, as a little bit more detail there, more users currently signed up for early adoption than I think we anticipated, since it's just a super straightforward. You're just registering an account. So we're expecting at launch, once there is something that people can sign up and not, just be on a waiting list, but actually be able to start using, we are expecting, a pretty big influx to come in through the App Store. So that means, the more people we have using it at launch, it's just more reasons to make sure that we're as polished as possible, versus, excuse me, versus pushing it out the gate and running into some issues that can just kind of leave a sour taste in everybody's mouth. So, as part of our work towards that, we are onboarding some additional hands to help us hit our goals. So that is what we're going to spend a lot of the summer working on, is just, tightening down. We have, the main core in place, but now it's just going through and making sure, do we have this perfected to the point that we would like to see it, that it really is going back to our mission statement. Is it accessible? Is it usable? Is it friendly? So as kind of ties in one to the other as we're bringing on additional people, to give you guys a bit of an update here. Thank you guys so much for helping us hit our first goal on Kofi. I remember seeing that come through. I think we were at like 110% on it. So thank you guys so much for helping us get through that. We are going to be updating then our goal later this afternoon to reflect our current needs. As we're, beginning to bring additional people on board. Just given the timeline, we've just found that having, that paid assistance really makes sure that we're able to, get some additional work, on and keep it to timelines now that we are getting closer and closer into our launch. Finally, this wasn't announced on social media, but if you guys joined us for our stream in April, I did mention a raffle, and then we got into this huge legal thing with our legal counsel. Raffling Entering raffle is technically considered gambling due to a lot of legal stuff, a lot of words. So that is currently on hold at the moment. Like I said, we didn't open up tickets, so nobody bought any tickets, and it wasn't announced anywhere else. It was just on the stream, but just wanted to go ahead and mention it here because I figure if you're hanging out with us today, you might have been hanging out with us um, last month. And then finally, I know it's been kind of a more quiet chat because this wasn't as like, in terms of content, I feel it was more exciting than our previous one, but in terms of, the timeline, I know it's pretty quiet, so I don't see any questions right now in the chat, but if you guys have anything, please feel free to hit us up on social media. You can also join our Discord server, send us any messages through there. Yeah, and if anything comes up, please let me know. And just as our final screens through here, if you are interested and haven't joined us just yet, you can become an early adopter now over at CRAWLR.app before we launch in the App Store. Might be a little bit difficult to see on the screen there, but you can find the perks listed over on our website. Ultimately, you're going to enjoy that 1 year of ad-free app usage once we do launch. You'll get a nifty little badge identifying you as an early adopter, for some razzle-dazzle. You'll be eligible for some early app testing, as you guys saw, that is currently on our horizon, and we will think that you're the bee's knees and the cat's pajamas. All of those things all in one. Perfect. Well, I think
Yes.
that was pretty straightforward to go through, so thank you guys so much
Yeah.
for joining our stream. And Marissa, is there anything before we signed off?
No, I think we're all set.
Perfect. Awesome. Well, thank you all so much. Like I said, we've got this recorded, so we will download it and put it up on our YouTube channel for viewing later. But until then, we can't wait to see you guys at lunch.
Yeah. See you then.
Bye, everybody.